A brief glossary of transgenderism from the website autogynephiliatruth.wordpress.com. If things are not called by their right names, language departs from truth. When language departs from truth, nothing can be done well. When nothing is done well, good practices and good music fall by the wayside. When these are gone, justice is unequal and unfair. When justice is broken in this way, the people feel afraid and stuck. Therefore, the wise person uses right words and calls things by their right names, and also makes sure that in response to these words, the right things are done. Let these words be true. By Confucius, around 2,500 years ago. Term: biology. Definition: according to men and women who mimic stereotypes in appearance and behavior of the opposite sex, biology is an antiquated and highly transphobic mishmash of lies and severe errors that in the present context works oppressively to invalidate trans identities. According to everyone else, biology is a wide-ranging classificatory system and body of knowledge, which, though evolving over the course of centuries, has nevertheless not changed in its assessment that females are females and males are males, and that one cannot become the other. Term: cis. Definition: term invented by transgender activists to stigmatize women and men who are not afflicted with the false, fixed idea that they are members of the opposite sex. Cissexism. Male mimickers of femininity perceive cissexism in every context where it is impossible for men to obtain or purchase basic realities and common themes of women's lives. For example, menstruation and pregnancy. They are primarily concerned with elements of women's lives, or elements perceived so, that hold erotic charge for them. Detransition. Ceasing mimicry of sex role stereotypes that was performed with the goal of convincing others that one is a member of the opposite sex. See also transition. Die in a fire. DIAF. Expression commonly used by female impersonators to intimidate women who refuse to comply with their narcissistic demand for validation. Gaslighting. An important strategy for enforcing population-level compliance with transgenderism or other new ideologies, promoted through the mass media, government, kids' schools, and biased agenda-driven science. Through constant repetitive hyping of lies, large sectors of society begin to feel like they're going crazy, doubting and disbelieving what they know very well to be true and making efforts to accept the outrageous lies. Also refers to the efforts of transgender individuals to convince everyone in their lives that they are really, and always have been, the opposite sex. Especially common when married men decide to destroy their families in order to transition. In some cases of so-called transgender children, refers to parental indoctrination of these kids in the notion that the girl is really a boy or vice versa. Gender. Femininity, masculinity. Sex role stereotypes prescribed over thousands of years by male-dominated societies, including female token torturers, worldwide as a primary way to control the bodies and minds of women and often kill them. Gender confirmation surgery. Horrific, experimental, massive, and unnecessary surgical butchery and removal of healthy organs. A means to ensure that patients will spend their inevitably shortened lives under medical surveillance and supervision. An ideology based on the notion that with money and health insurance, one can purchase the right body parts. Advertised by transgender activists as the basic health care they need to survive. In females, removal of breasts, ovaries, uterus, and fallopian tubes. Possible fashioning of a fake penis through the use of flesh from other parts of the woman's body. In males, removal of testicles, defleshing of the penis, and inversion within body cavity so that it vaguely, very superficially resembles a woman's genitals. However, it is merely a hole without any function but for another man to put his penis inside. It never properly heals and requires lifelong dilation. Also, facial feminization surgery and breast implants. In the USA and in some other high-income countries, these expensive, unnecessary surgeries are typically covered by health insurance. Meanwhile, eyeglasses, dentistry, drugs for treating legitimate health conditions are often not covered. These drastic surgeries are currently recommended for children as young as age 14. Perverted mutilating doctors are keen to start cutting as early as possible. Gender dysphoria. In nearly all transgender males, a symptom of obsessive sexualized narcissism. In women, a symptom of internalized misogyny and sometimes internalized homophobia. Psychologists and doctors focus on treating these symptoms while ignoring or not even thinking about the actual condition at the root of the symptoms. In children, an indication that parents may not have accurate information about their child's feelings and behavior and are being told lies by psychologists or medical professionals. In some cases, a sign that one or both parents may have Munchausen syndrome by proxy, borderline personality disorder, or just extreme narcissism and are abusing their child. In medical practice, feelings and ideas that a child may have about actually being the opposite sex as diagnosed through conversations with such children and their parents. Currently deemed unethical for clinicians to disagree with the child or to propose any alternative approaches to immediate transition. This is considered to be conversion therapy and essentially a hate crime. Indeed, it is now medically necessary to encourage and support such childish feelings and incorrect ideas, and it is not permissible to examine the possibility of attention-seeking personality disorders in children's parents. Adults may simply announce to the world that they have gender dysphoria. Trans ideology requires that gender dysphoria be treated very aggressively as early as possible with drastic surgeries and lifelong off-label use of dangerous drugs, especially in children. Gender dysphoria is also a framework for building health insurance companies. Gender identity. In men, an erotic target location error. In plain English, this describes the result of several months or years performing endless secretive rituals of masturbatory self-hypnosis to develop a female gender identity. Invented by men to serve as a narcissistic excuse or alibi to conceal embarrassment about their sexualized dress-up sessions and subsequent public display of fetishistic fantasy. In women, a discomfort with and resistance to prescribed sex role stereotypes, gender, without having knowledge that compliance with such stereotypes is totally optional. In adolescence, often indicates that the youth has received programming in school that manipulates common adolescent insecurities about body image or sexuality by falsely teaching that people can change sex and that it's totally fine if they want to do it. Note, such programming is now common in USA schools as part of comprehensive sexuality education. May also indicate that the youth has visited social media websites where adult activists lurk with the goal of convincing confused young people that they are really trans. In children, a sign that pathetic or hapless parents and devious doctors are filling the child's consciousness with all sorts of harmful nonsense and lies about their bodies being wrong when the child merely does not wish to comply with sex role stereotypes or is just confused. Innate gender identity propaganda in mass culture deploys example of supposed trans kids to help adult males elide embarrassment, as described above. So maybe it should say elude. Help adult males elude embarrassment, as described above. Hormone replacement therapy, HRT. Dangerous chemical drug regimens mischaracterize as hormones that permanently destroy a healthy body's natural endocrine balance and grievously distort its appearance. In both sexes, use of such drugs brings danger. Males taking estrogen, for example, may have as high as 40 times the normal risk of stroke. Women taking testosterone also face a greatly elevated risk of heart attack or other serious cardiovascular events. Nevertheless, the transgender cult and industry deems it wise to start children as young as 12 or 13 on lifelong regimens of these drugs. Intersex. An excuse primarily used by men mimicking femininity to suggest that their predilection for the color pink or desire to buy many pairs of cute shoes has its basis in a hypothesized rare genetic disorder of sexual development, supposedly making them intersex, but which has never been diagnosed. They claim this in an effort to pretend that their desire to mimic femininity, feminine stereotypes, is not based on masturbation fantasies. A parasitic co-opting of attention from people who really do have such conditions. Menstruators. Because men mimicking feminine stereotypes have narcissistic rage at the bleak injustice of their inability to menstruate, and because they perceive invalidation and unfairness in this biologically determined distinction of males from females, they have convinced some in society's progressive sectors to characterize real women as non-women. If it is really necessary to speak of such appallingly cis-sexist topics as menstruation, the trannies say, media and organization targeting women should refer to real women in these contexts as menstruators. This way, the trannies can continue to be the center of attention as fake women, while menstruators are relegated to the fringe. See also cis-sexism. Misgender. To speak accurately and correctly in describing men as male and women as female. Perceived as a life-threatening attack by transgender enthusiasts, in the context of male femininity mimickers, often results in suicide threats or a towering tizzy of transgender narcissistic rage. Narcissistic rage. Disproportionate overkill response of anger by males in reaction to any type of invalidation of their gender identity. Not really transgender. Response invariably given by male femininity mimickers when confronted with evidence that one of their own is a vicious murderer, pedophile, rapist, or other type of depraved criminal. Progressive. People who are eager to believe and promote the most ridiculous, absurd, cooked up, anti-scientific fantasy dogma if it makes them appear to be kind, compassionate persons concerned with the latest trends in social justice. Puberty blockers. Toxic drugs used to treat certain cancers in adult patients but used experimentally in small children to stop them from going through puberty, permanently sterilize them and ensure their compliance on the one-way train to transsexuality. Also to enhance the likelihood that their bones will be severely damaged within a few years. Without these drugs, most children stop saying that they are the opposite sex, but with them, all continue. And suicide. Empty threats of suicide constantly made by narcissistic female impersonators in an effort to extort and manipulate non-trannies. Anecdotal suicide statistics similarly used to manipulate society. Interestingly, real statistics from hyper-progressive Sweden show much higher suicide rates in trannies of both sexes after they have had their body-mutilating surgeries. Never discussed. Does this high suicide rate reflect profound regret at having taken the tranny path and perceived inability to have a good life? Quite possible, given the near-total denial of detransition by the trans cult and WPATH. Tranny, short form of trans woman, i.e., man mimicking female feminine stereotypes. Self-referential term invented by male trannies some decades ago. Around 2015, they suddenly decided it was derogatory and attempted to stop its use through threats of suicide or in bouts of narcissistic rage, a common term used by ordinary people to describe trannies. Transgenderism, a cultish ideology based on the notion that males can have female brains and that despite having XY chromosomes, male secondary sex characteristics, decades of male privilege and socialization, not to mention long histories of physical, sexual, economic, or emotional violence against women, men can become women. According to this dogma, a man needs only to declare himself to be a woman. Indeed, he can declare that he has always been a woman. And if he does this, the whole world must be compelled to play along with his fantasy. Also applies to women who believe they can become men, with the ideology reversed in focus. The ideology was developed by men, however, and as there are far more men mimicking femininity, they are its primary proponents. Transgenderism is a multifaceted means of exterminating women and girls. Among other approaches, through making female a meaningless term, just a self-identity that a man may choose as his object of masturbation and public display, and through legislating opportunities for males to attack or kill women in spaces where women should expect some safety and privacy from men. There's no such thing as a transgender person. There is only obsessive mimicry of appearance and behavioral stereotypes pertaining to the opposite sex. It is accompanied by the mistaken belief that this mimicry means one has actually become a member of the opposite sex. Transition does not exist. No one actually transitions to the opposite sex. Term actually describes dress-up and role-play that mimics traditional sex stereotypes for appearance and behavior of the opposite sex, often accompanied by medicalized processes of self-mutilation through lifelong regimens of dangerous hormone drugs and unnecessary major surgeries to remove healthy organs. Trans man, a woman mimicking masculine stereotypes and mistakenly believing she's a man. Transphobia does not actually exist, in the victimized sense aggressively promoted by transgender activists. However, it does serve to describe the reasonable fear that women and men may have of an outburst of transgender narcissistic rage by men mimicking feminine stereotypes and feeling invalidated. Trans woman, a man mimicking feminine stereotypes and mistakenly believing he's a woman. Validation, the sine qua non of transgenderism, especially in males mimicking femininity. Also known as narcissistic supply, these female impersonators absolutely crave validation. Their perceived acceptance by women in restrooms, in other words, when women make a fake smile, leave quickly, and don't have them ejected, is seen to be a high form of validation. Anytime a normal man holds open a door for a female impersonator or a store clerk refers to him as Miss or Ma'am, he finds this to be excellent validation. On the other hand, if anyone should dare to question his womanhood or call him sir or he or him, even unintentionally, this invalidation of his gender identity will likely draw his narcissistic rage. WPATH. We put anyone on tranny hormones, also known as the World Professional Organization for Transgender Health. This sleazy organization's self-serving transgender health guidelines are considered by stupid or crooked doctors to be authoritative and legit. WPATH is composed of delusional transgender activists and their enablers in the transgender cult and industry, including pharmaceutical corporation kingpins, physicians, psychologists, social workers, and academic researchers. They are funded by pharmaceutical companies and tranny billionaires. This is a list of their pharmaceutical industry sponsors for their 2003 annual conference with the organization's previous name. They no longer provide these lists. Can you imagine how the situation must be by now? We would like to express our special thanks to the following companies for their generous support to this 18th Harry Benjamin International Symposium on Gender Dysphoria, AMS Benelux, A Prime, Braun, Bristol Myers Squibb, Bruco Medical Services, CTO, Coloplast, Convatec, Devro Instruments, Uromi, GlaxoSmithKline, Hospithera, Johnson & Johnson, KCI Medical Belgium, Labo D, Mentor Benelux, Molnick Healthcare, Norgine, Patella, Pierre Faber Benelux, Pillingweck, SA Bezens, Sanofi Synthalabo, Solway Pharma, Tricholast, UCB Pharma, Viatris, and Zimmer. Comments. Love, Truth, Courage says, Genius should be mandatory reading for all legislators, educators, and concerned citizens. Petunia Cat 00 says, this is superb and damn near comprehensive. A good starting point for somebody just learning about the whole transgender ideology and fiasco. Love, Truth, Courage says, how about adding Oppression Olympics, the ranking of oppressive forces faced by humans, invariably resulting in transgender individuals, especially the all-important male to trans, winning the gold medal, even if they're millionaires or billionaires, white males, and have close friends in the upper echelons of politics and society. And even if these male to trans have benefited from decades of male privilege and socialization. Virtue signaling, a bandwagon jumper's desire to broadcast stalwart liberal credentials and seem compassionate, all while having no real working knowledge or concern about the harmful effects of transgender drugs and surgeries on actual transgender individuals. This is invariably coupled with a dismissive attitude towards the potential harm that sometimes comes to women when they're forced to share private spaces with male to trans with violent histories. Or something like that. The coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Awesome Cat says, I like it. Trish says, love it, I want to play too. Reality, an oppressive version of physical existence. Female, a creature with a penis between his legs and a vagina between his ears.